Hey, let's talk about links. So, when I mean link, I mean a connection between two different parts, or like sending a user to a different area, whether that's a different part of our website, maybe to a different website, maybe to a different section on the same page. So, every link will start off the same, using the same HTML element, which is the anchor tag. This is one of those HTML elements that isn't so clear because it uses the anchor element. So looking at our site, I do have some links right here. Get my favorite pie dish here, and then I have a URL. So let's turn that into a link. For me, it's about on line 41. So I'm actually going to make the word here the link text because I don't want the whole URL in the page. It looks kind of, I don't know, cluttered, or it's not necessary. As long as you specify where the link is going to take them, that's what is most important. Never have a link that just says click here and it doesn't really explain where that link is going. That always looks kind of sketchy, like one of those sites where you see, 5 different download buttons. So always specify it's for the user, so it's easy for the user and it's also accessible. So we're going to make the word here a link that is going to go to this URL. So I'm actually going to cut this, and my here will be wrapped around an A with an href. And then I have to close that opening tag and then have the closing anchor tag. So A for anchor, and every link will have an href. This is where you are referencing them to, where you're taking them to. So I'll put my URL there. Okay. And so by default, your links will show up blue and underlined. They'll turn purple if you have clicked on them and visited the link. When using a link to a page outside of yours, an external link, you always have to have the HTTP protocol within the URL. It's not good enough to just do www. You have to start with the whole URL. So I usually go to the website and then copy it from the URL bar. So I'll save that, click on my link, and then it'll take me to Bennington Potter's Centerpiece Pie Pan. Now, one thing about this link is that it opened in the same tab, so somebody would have to go back one page to go back to my website, which is totally fine. However, if you ever want a link to open up in a new tab, you can add another attribute to the opening tag. And that attribute is target equals _ blank. So now when I click this link, it opens in a new tab. So if you're anything like me, maybe you clicked a link and it took you to a website and you're like, oh yeah, that's nice. And you're like, ooh, I like this muffin pan too. And then before you know it, you spent like 15 minutes on this website and totally forgot like where you came from. So we want people to be able to easily come back to our site. One, for accessibility, right? And also to keep people on our sites, right? So that is an external link. Now, like I said, links aren't as intuitive. It's the A element with the href attribute. A lot of times I will see students try and use the LI, the list item element, as the link element, because LI, you think, oh, it stands for link. It does not. It stands for list item. I think that confusion comes from because our navigation, which is almost always an unordered list with LIs, and it's also links, right? So I'm going to come into my more desserts and say that this list item, which is also going to be a link, so let's use our anchor tag with our href. be sure to grab the closing anchor tag and put it after the text that you want to become a link. So now more desserts is a link, and it's not going anywhere right now. If you have links not going anywhere right now, you can always use a placeholder of the hashtag symbol. You should never have this when your site goes live, because then these are dead links, which is not good for accessibility. But if this is like the first page that you're building out of your site and you haven't made the other pages yet, it's totally okay to use the placeholder. So I'll see that as a placeholder, and I'll also see the / as a placeholder. But let's actually make a page for this to go. So this I want to link to a page inside my site, which would make it an internal link. I'm going to open up my Explorer. I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call it more desserts.html. There we go. We can put something in here maybe. I'll just give it an h1 of more desserts. And then I'll go back to my index. So linking to another page on your site, you have to specify like the file pathway. Since index and more desserts are on the same directory level of our root directory folder, not one is inside of a folder or anything like a subfolder or anything like that, what you would just do is type the name of the file. And you know you're on the right track when it sees it and it helps you. So more desserts.html. So now when I click this link, it goes to my other page. So that's nice and easy, but what about if you have pages within subfolders? Maybe I have a subfolder for cookies because I have like 50 cookie recipes. So I'll have a subfolder of cookies, and then I'll put, I don't know, peanut butter.html, peanut butter cookie.html, whatever makes sense. And then I'll just put some content here too, so we can see that it's going to the correct place. There we go. So I'm going to come back to my index, and then we will add a link to that cookie recipe that we created. So I'll just add it in my navigation. Sure. It would probably be in the more desserts page, but just for the sake of instruction, we'll just put it here. So it'll be a list item. It'll be a link, the href, and then let's just go ahead and put the link text here. Peanut butter cookie recipe. Our href has to be the file pathway to that peanutbutter.html. So I'm going to need to go inside of a folder. So to go inside of a folder, you type the folder's name followed by a /. Now you are inside that folder, and now you can type the document name. So it's already popping up here for me, peanutbutter.html. So if I go to this, it was successful. Yay. If you did not go through the subfolder and you just put peanutbutter.html, it's not going to work because it doesn't know where that file is in relation to the current index.html file. Another way to do it is to tell it to always start from the root folder. So to start with a / and then cookies, then / then your document name. There you go. Okay. But what about when you're coming from this page back to the home page. So this page is in a subfolder, so it needs to come outside of that folder. So this can be a little tricky. So I'll go to the peanut butter .html and I'll make a link that says, I don't know, back to home, or back to, it's technically not the home page, it's the apple pie page, but we'll just pretend. So back to home. In order to come outside of a folder, you're going to start with a .. This means you're coming outside of a folder, not inside, but you're backtracking. Then we can go and find our index.html. There we go. This one you can also just start with the /, and it'll start the file pathway from the root folder, which is your project folder. So this one, the project 1 folder. So you could do it like that, so you don't have to worry about the .. You can just start from the top, basically. So that's an internal link, linking internally within your site to different pages. Let me go back to my index. There is another link that we can do, and that is a linking to a different section of our page. So our first link here, recipe, what I want to happen when somebody clicks this is that it shoots them down to the recipe, right? If this was a recipe like you see online today where it has like a whole life story before it, I want them to quickly be able to skip all that if they want to. So in order to do that, we have to link to an ID, specifically an ID, not a class. So this section, I have already given an ID of recipe. So my link is going to go to that ID. I'm going to come back up to recipe. I'll do my href. I'll make sure my closing A is after recipe. So recipe, the word recipe becomes what they click on. It becomes the link. And the href will be the ID name starting with the hashtag symbol. So this specifies that I'm linking to an ID. And then my ID name was recipe, I believe. So now when they click that, it jumps them down to the recipe. Okay. Some other links that we can do. There is one other fun one. Well, there's a few, I think, but one that I'll go over is that you can actually have something linked to an email client. So you'll see this usually like in the footer of a site, especially if you're on mobile. You can click on the phone number and it'll like open up your phone app with that phone number in, ready to call the place. You can click on an email address and it'll open up like your email with the email address in the to form. So I'll show you the email one. Let's pretend that stephanieskitchen.com, when they click that, I want them to like send me an email. So I'm going to wrap that in an A for link. All links start with the anchor tag. All links also have the href. I'm going to move my closing anchor tag, so now the verbiage stephanieskitchen.com becomes the link. And then to link to an email, it will be mail to : and then whatever email address you want it to go to. So stephanie@kitchen.com. So since it's a mail to link, when I click it, it's going to ask me which email client it wants me to open this up in. Just keep in mind, always keep your link text clear of what's happening. So this isn't very clear that it's taking them to an email. I would expect this to take me to stephanieskitchen.com. So for accessibility and for usability, make sure the link text makes sense. So I might say email stephanieskitchen.com. Or maybe just email. Email me, send me a message, something like that. Okay. And that's links.